Excuse me, bro. You're excused. And I'm not your bro.
Hey there, I'm Rav, and I'm here to tell you how to play Lurdu. Lurdusaurus, or Lurdu and Lurd as the community calls it, is a mid-tier semi-aquatic herbivore that eats the sea plants in Bob's oceans. Make no mistake though, while it does have a strictly plant diet, much like a hippo, it won't hesitate to murk its target first. With its annoying 5 call and surprisingly tough nature, this guy packs a punch, or should I say, thumb. Lurdu has 3 primary attacks. The first attack we're going to go over is its basic attack, a hand swipe. The hand swipe deals pretty moderate damage, probably on the lower end if I'm going to be quite honest, and this is pretty good to use when your other 2 attacks are on cooldown or when you're behind someone. Lurdu's second attack is a charge that deals a large chunk of damage, pretty decent injury, and applies knockback. This is extremely good for hit and runs as you can rotate between your charges, and as it gives you a burst of speed, can also be used as an escape or initiator. Lurdu's third attack is a dart that it gains by entering the water, which turns its right-click charge ability into a right-click dart ability. As with all the other darters, Thick Skull increases the damage quite a bit, and distance, stamina usage, and AP usage are all affected by the dart talent. This will also be your main way of getting around in the water. Lurdu has a passive ability called bottom walking, and this is basically when you're near the bottom of an area in the ocean, well, a buff will show up giving you increased range on darts, will make them costless to use, and your breath bar goes significantly lower. This is extremely good in fights and when traversing the areas, as even when young, this can help you get around the map. Lurdu's unique diet. Now before we go into the combat section of the video, I want to explain to you what you can and can't eat in the ocean, as Lurdu's diet is different from the other herbivores. Sadly, as on the date of this video releasing, when you smell, there will be a blue outline that shows everything you can eat, but you should not eat everything it tells you, and pretty much everything on land will give you negative bias, so you should only eat them if you're in a pinch. That being said, most things that make you sick will come up with a pop-up if you smell right over it, but of course something might be covering it, blocking the prompt, or the acid will look pretty similar to the other one. I'll probably already have this up on the screen, but I'm going to have a list of what you can eat, what gives you bias, and what will give you negative bias and get you sick. I'm not going to promise everything's going to be on there though, because the devs may have added stuff or removed stuff. Now that you know a bit about Lurdu, let's talk about how this bad boy plays. As I said earlier, Lurdu is a lot like a hippo, and with the right hands can become a force to be reckoned with in Bob's oceans. Being able to body most creatures in the ocean with your pretty high damage when building power while maintaining good maneuverability makes them very versatile, and for the land fights, your charge can serve as a getaway and an initiator, as I said earlier. Even Moza and Krono, the apex predators of Bob's oceans, fear Lurdu, and anything that can kill you on land will have to get to you before you can touch the water. Now I'm going to go over some matchups for Lurdu. To start off with, we'll go with your counterpart being Ichty. Ichty is basically you, but lower health and more damage. Don't underestimate these guys, and even with you being the land semi-aquatic, Ichty is still faster than Lurdu on land when Lurdu is not using its charge, and it turns better, not to mention with the Stormlord buff, which gives it a massive speed increase. In the water, however, I would like to argue that Lurdu deals with Ichty pretty easily in my opinion, as you are both on an even playing field, and Lurdu can use its extra tankiness to its advantage. I would just go for easy hits, and when you can, because they don't have bruiser, try and make them hit your tail instead of your body to do less damage. Elasmo, on the date of this video being recorded, being February 18th, 2023, is simply not a threat to you. Lurdu has a little more than about half of your HP, and definitely does not have as much damage as you. And with the current meta Lurdu build, you can literally 2-shot them, where it would take like 10 hits to kill you, assuming they go damage. Again, you probably really don't need to worry about these guys, and as they are the fastest thing in the ocean, you probably won't be catching them either. Rex on land is simply not worth trying to kill. They outrun you and they can outturn you, and their damage and injury is simply just better than yours. This all changes though in the water, as Rex does not have a good turn to really fight you, and they aren't going to be outswimming you at all. As long as you don't get hit in the water, this is a pretty easy fight, just don't fight them on land to start with. You can also strafe them to death for a much safer but slower kill. Weavinator and Megaraptor. These guys are pretty hard to fight on land as they have a better speed and jump than you, and even with your charge, this fight is not really in your favor. I would honestly not fight these guys purely on land, and I would rotate between land and water so you can maintain a good distance from them. If you need to, you can also jump turn to try and keep them in front of you to avoid getting butt ridden. If they're in the water, these guys are on the faster side but can't dart, so you should be able to easily dispatch them, as they don't really have a means of killing you outright in the water, unless you're already pretty low already. But again, they're not really going to catch you in the water. Cohelus ceratops is pretty simple to fight as long as you are patient and have a few more members in them. Koa's turn is pretty bad, and you are faster than them, not to mention your charge attack, which can give you a quick getaway. This is only made easier if they do not build Turn Wall Stomp, which will allow you to easily get a hit in, and with the current meta build will make really quick work of them. Obviously they still outdamage you, so be careful in straight up fights, and avoid taking hits at all costs if you can. The only real thing you have to look out for is your teammates, as miscommunication can get you killed, like the Lurdu in this clip, that died to their teammates' charge after getting crippled by them, letting the Koas finish them off. Other than that, it's pretty simple as long as you avoid face tanking them. Mosasaur, when you are in a group, is not bad to face. You are both darters, but with Lurdu having access to Thick Skull and Bruiser, Lurdu can actually outdamage Mosa, and cripple it if they don't build Strong Bones. This changes when they start grabbing you though. When you are grabbed, depending on how much slippery you have, you will take less injury and HP when darting out, using your right click, which will allow you to escape. However, you are now slowed from injury and your dart is heavily affected by how much injury you have, so you have to watch how much injury you have at all times to avoid being a sitting duck. Gigantic Mosas can also do a lot of injury to you just with their bites. It can be pretty rare for them to get to that size. Overall with this matchup, make sure you have slippery and keep an eye on your stamina and AP. And last but not least, we have Krono. Krono is a somewhat simple fight for Lurdu that I personally feel is in the Lurdu's favor in about 70% of scenarios. Krono is the other bruiser in the ocean on the apex level and deals a lot of injury, which counters the darting playstyle, and trying to go hit for hit with them will not work, as they do a lot of damage. You will need to go for backside hits when you can, that way they don't hit you as often. You also, of course, can't get hit by the lunge, otherwise it's pretty much game over if you have no or low strong bones. Be wary of the lunge from a ping and lag standpoint as well, since they could hit you even though you aren't close to them, and not all servers are willing to revive for this. Outside of that though, it's pretty simple to dodge if you see or hear it coming, as you can go behind a rock or dart away from the lunge early. Everything else is pretty simple to fight as long as they're in the water, as they don't have the dart and speed to deal with you. I wouldn't recommend fighting Para on land though, and Acro is kind of situational. Now we're going to go over the builds for Lurdu. As I've mentioned before in other videos, you don't have to do what I do, it's just what I have found to be most successful. For Lurdu, the most popular build, and the only builds I can recommend right now, is Speed Combat or Combat Speed. With Dart being meta right now, it's no surprise that the speed build is much stronger than ever, especially with Thick Skull giving you such a strong damage increase. You can also build Bruiser, which in the ocean is very powerful, as immobilizing the other aquatics and semi-aquatics means they move around less, which gives you more chances to hit them. Also, on average, most of the hits you're going to get are going to be in the back anyways, so you may as well get the talent. Going more damage or more speed does not matter, as all the builds will more or less be filled in the same. I will mention though that some of the talents are situational, but Lurdus can pretty much build whatever they want. I can't really recommend combat survival or speed survival on Lurdu, as they both lack a heavy part of everything good about Lurdu, and I really can't stress this enough. If you do want survival, after 1.32 with the meta build is the best time to do it. I could also see you 2 out of 3ing everything in the trees, so combat, survival, and speed all being pretty much half filled, so you'd be a jack of all trades and master of none early game build. I want you all to know that last part took a lot longer to record than I thought. Also, before we end off, I'm going to be going over my new section, which is the best talents section, where I go over at least 5 of the best talents that this creature has. The first one is Dart, as you can basically use it for anything, whether it be fighting or just getting around the map. Ability Power is essential for doing any fighting action, or in Lurdu's case, also moving around the map, which is nicely paired with Dart. Thick Skull is arguably the best damage talent that you have in the game at this moment, which in turn is nicely paired with Bruiser, which is essential on Lurdu and what I think you should always max. And lastly, we have Aqua or Speed Increase. Getting talents or inherits in these are great and should not be underestimated. Let me know in the comments below if you like this section. If you did, I'll probably do it more, and if you didn't, I'll remove it from now on. Or if you feel like something should be changed, for instance, talking about it longer, I can do that too. Life strategies and pros and cons. Lurdu is a fun, fast, and strong playable in the ocean, and is a well-loved creature to everything but the aquatics. Lurdu has an easier time surviving due to being able to be a land and sea creature, and does not have a hard time eating most of the time, as food is fairly abundant, and if you do run out of food in an area, you can always just dart to the next one. The bottom walking buff, also being as strong as it is, makes traveling not hard to do in the ocean, which is always a plus. I do think that it is a struggle for players to learn Lurdu though, as Lurdu has a high skill cap due to being a darter, and strafing in the ocean is a must skill to learn. Going against one of the strongest creatures in the game also does not help, as Mosa for new players can be a hard to face without any experience, and Krono is a harsh lesson due to being able to insta-cripple you. Your main rival, Ichty, also is pretty strong at the moment, and being the land semi does not feel great when you are slower than it in almost all situations. Players also need to find out what they can and can't eat in the ocean, as there's really nothing telling you other than the smell key to help you know what you can and can't eat, and things on land don't really count because most of the foliage for the land is poisonous to you. Although I do hope my list helped you from earlier so you don't get sick. Succeeding on Lurdu will take a lot of time, but when you get down to it, it will all be worth it for being able to play one of the stronger mid-tiers in the game. Don't run away from fights all the time, and if you want practice, don't be afraid to go on a DM server and fight your heart out. That's the whole point of those servers. Don't go play on a survival server and get pissed off because you don't know how to play a creature. Unlike the aquatic player base, the semi-aquatic players are not as picky with who they play with, so don't be afraid to use the group finder to find teammates. And lastly, when it comes to eating, please look where you're going and avoid eating the bad starfish. That's all I really have for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching the video, and I hope this guide helped you. Next video I'm going to be doing is how to counter Moza, as someone has requested it in the last video, and my next creature guide is probably going to be Wevinator or Psy, depending on how many clips I get. Other than that news, I have nothing for you guys. I wish you guys luck in your Beast of Bermuda journey.